स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Sairam Akka, you may begin now.
Okay, thank you. Baba shines forth as the patron of music and letters and as the giver of food and sustenance during Dasara. And so it is a memorable festival from the very beginning of this manifestation. The devotees delight in discourses, musical performances, dramas, and sumptuous feasts. Every evening during those years, there was a procession too along the narrow roads of the village. Baba on a palanquin decorated differently on each day and carried on the shoulders by eager relays of bhaktas. During the progress of the procession, the present writer has himself seen Baba plucking from the garlands around him odd flowers and with a palm full of petals, scattering them among the crowd. And lo, it all fell with a jingle, for each petal had become a small medallion with Baba's portrait on one side and Shirdi Sai Baba's portrait on the other. Or it often happened that the petals were turned into peppermints, which rained among the crowds around the palanquin. While on the palanquin, Baba's forehead will often be covered by vibhuti that emanated from within, and bhaktas could see this, as well as the kumkum dots. Soon the mandir was found to be too small for the gatherings of devotees. Many worshippers of Shirdi Sai Baba, on hearing that he had incarnated in human form in the village of Puttaparthi, hurried thither. Many who went on pilgrimage to Shirdi as usual were directed there to go to Puttaparthi instead. Others got to know the Baba of Shirdi through Satya Sai Baba himself. Artho jignya surartarthi jnanani cha, says Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Flock to the Lord, that is to say. The afflicted, the inquiring, the seekers of comfortable life, and the wise, these four types approach the Lord with their varied motives. But the Lord welcomes all and satisfies all. The afflicted he relieves. His vibhuti acts as a charm to drive away evil spirits and the effects of black magic from hundreds of unfortunates. The critical, the inquisitive, the doubting, the skeptical, the agnostic, he satisfies and attracts and attaches to himself. The persons eager to get a comfortable life, he blesses, provided they are educated enough to use the peace of mind they get for cultivating the spirit and contemplating on the ultimate goal of life itself. The jnani is dearest to him, for he reveals himself in all his glory to his vision, purified and clarified by steadfast discipline. Persons belonging to all these groups came to Puttaparthi, the first and the third groups naturally in much large numbers. He revolutionized the lives of all who came to him. The transformation of a gang of thieves into quiet, God-fearing agriculturists is worth noting. When Baba one night was on the hill on the other bank of the Chitravati, he came upon a group of dacoits who were engaged in rather ticklish task of dividing their spoils. But when they saw him and accepted from his hand the divine vibhuti, they knew they were face to face with the eternal witness. Baba spoke to the 17 black hearts and by his alchemy he brought them over to the village of Puttaparthi. They all took up ways of peaceful living and Baba used to present one of them as an example, a sturdy man of middle age whom he had appointed as a night watchman. A long shed had to be put up within a few years in the front of the mandir along its whole length with a corrugated sheet roofing to accommodate the gatherings of devotees. But even that proved too small. A separate block with one living room and bathroom was put up for Baba behind the mandir. It was in this room that Baba operated on Dr. Padmanabhan's brother for hernia. It was in that shed, behind the screen in front of the shrine, that Baba operated on Appaya of Puttaparthi for appendicitis. It was while sleeping in the open space between the mandir and the block behind that Baba one night announced that one of his bhaktas had lost a talisman that he had given him, for it had come back into his possession. He said that he must go to Madras immediately to tie it to the wrist of the patient, but all around him prayed that he should not undertake the journey at that hour, going out of his body and coming back into it. He agreed to send it with someone proceeding to Madras, and gave the talisman into the custody of Sri Sheshagiri Rao, an old devotee, with the warning, "Keep it tight, tie it in a towel and wind it around your waist." He obeyed the command implicitly and slept with the talisman wound round his middle. About 2 hours later all of us were awakened by the loud laughter of Baba, who had sat up in bed. We gathered round him and wanted that he should permit us to join in the joke. Sheshagiri Rao was still unaware of what was going on. Baba woke him up and asked for the talisman. He unwound the towel, unrolled it, and lo, it had disappeared. Baba chided him for fun and said that he had gone and tied it around the wrist of the person who had to be continuously guarded by it. Yes, he had gone to Madras and returned. Bhaktas will never forget the old mandiram, for Baba was always moving right in the midst of the people there. He composed a large number of bhajan songs on Krishna, which he taught them while there. He trained them and corrected them on the spot and with great love and attention. Since the number of devotees who were present was not very large, Baba used to go out more frequently to the sands on the riverbed or the hills around the gardens across the river, and while they were engaged in cooking the feast, they saw many miracles or signs of his divinity. I first had darshan of Baba at the old mandiram, and that very evening he proceeded to the sands. There I heard him admonish some bhaktas for getting agitated in mind for all kinds of minor troubles. He told them that they must concentrate on japam as the best means of earning shanti, and then he suddenly turned upon a lady devotee with the question, "Don't you do japam?" She said something in reply, but Baba did not wait to hear it. "Oh, you have lost your japamala, haven't you?" he asked. Then thrusting his hand into the sand, he took out a rosary and said, "Here, come and take this." The lady rose reverentially and came forward with folded hands to receive. Baba signed to her to halt and told her with a smile illuminating his face, "Wait, first tell me which rosary this is." She looked at it and gasped, "Mine, Swami, or rather my mother's." She was so happy she had got back her japmala, then one given to her by her dying mother. Baba told us all about her mother's piety, her brother's rigorous tapas, and her own sadhana, and asked her when she had lost the precious japamala. She struck us all dumb by declaring she had misplaced it 4 years previously at Bangalore. What an astounding miracle to witness on one's very first evening at Puttaparthi. The gathering of bhaktas increased in number from month to month. The old mandiram was found inadequate. It was not possible to meet every day on the sands. The bhaktas felt that Baba's room was too cramped and low. He was being forced to live in the very midst of noise and dust and confusion. On festival occasions, the area around the mandir was too small to accommodate the persons who came, and so some devotees prayed to Baba to agree to the construction of the spacious building which Baba has named Prashanti Nilayam. Chapter 7 Prashanti Nilayam. The Prashanti Nilayam was inaugurated on 23rd November 1950, the 25th birthday of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. It took about 2 years to build. Baba can be said to be the architect and engineer who directed the entire work of construction. What a fine name for the dwelling of the Lord! What cool breezes and quiet solitudes does that name invoke! The mountains that stand in a ring around the Nilayam look like hoary sages lost in contemplation. The broad sky inspires vast, boundless musings. The rocks on the top of the hills invite the sadhaka for meditation. Baba has planted a tapovana on the side of the hill behind the Nilayam, and in that vana there grows a banyan tree which is bound to become the holiest of such trees, at least so far as the seekers of the spiritual uplift are concerned. The banyan tree, known as Nyagrodha and Vatavriksha, is famous in Indian sacred literature and history. Mahavishnu is said to sleep on a Vatapatra or a banyan leaf when Pralaya overpowers the world and the flood waters pervade the entire earth. Dakshinamurti or Lord Shiva in the form of the Guru is described as sitting under a banyan tree, expounding by his very silence all knowledge to his disciples. Just as Mahavishnu, by his Yoga Nidra, is vigilantly guarding the three worlds. This tree may be said to symbolize Sanatana Dharma, for its branches reach out in all directions and draw sustenance from every type of faith and every spiritual striving. It is also called Bahupada in Sanskrit for the series of roots that its branches send down towards the earth, strike the ground, and seek food therein and make the branches independent even of the parent trunk. The tree is therefore immortal, and there are in India banyan trees that have been worshipped for over thousands of years, like the one at Triveni at Prayag, Allahabad, or the one called Akshayavata at Gaya. The vata that is growing in the tapovan has peculiar sanctity of its own. In April 1959, while talking one evening on the sands of the Chitravati river to a gathering of devotees, Baba spoke of Buddha and the Bodhi tree and of sadhakas seeking some specially favorable spots for their tapas. Even as he was speaking thus, he took out from the sands a thick copper plate about 15 inches by 10 inches, containing mystic markings and letters of many known and unknown alphabets. He said that such shasanas are planted under the trees where sadhakas do tapas so that they may be helped to develop concentration of mind and control of the sense. He announced that he would be placing that shasana under a banyan tree that he proposed to plant in the Tapovanam. This was actually done on 29th June, and Baba declared that yogis who have reached a certain stage of tapas will automatically come to know of this tree and this shasana, and they will be drawn by the mysterious force towards the Tapovanam, which will then be fully justifying its name. The Prashanti Nilayam was inaugurated on 23rd November 1950, the 25th birthday of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. It took about 2 years to build. Baba can be said to be the architect and engineer who directed the entire work of construction. His suggestions had to be accepted by the engineers, for they found them much better than even theirs. They found Baba had a great sense of perspective, a nicer aesthetic point of view than they had. Baba was a hard taskmaster, but with immeasurable karuna too, and his grace overcame the most insurmountable obstacles. For example, huge heavy girders for the central prayer hall came from near Trichinopoli by train to Penukonda all right, but how on earth could they be brought over the district board road, 16 miles long, with a sandy stream on the 7th mile? How can any lorry with those long bars sticking out negotiate the acute angled corners of the village of Lochalla on the 9th mile? And after Bukkapatnam is reached, there were 3 miles of a track that can be referred to only by courtesy as a road, and then the broad expanse of sand which the Chitravati river spreads across a distance of 3 furlongs between Puttaparthi and Karnataka Nagapalli. There were the dilapidated culverts to be gone over, the slushes to be dragged through, and if and when the girders arrive at the spot, the task of hoisting them on top of the high walls. The engineers gave up all hope of bringing the girders to the village and asked Baba for some alternative proposals for roofing the prayer hall. But one night in the smaller hours, the engineer was awakened by a loud noise in front of his house at Anantapur. He peered into the darkness and was surprised to find a crane from the Tungabhadra dam works put out of action and unable to move. He ran up to Puttaparthi and told Baba that if only it could be made all right, the owners could be persuaded to travel up to Penukonda and bring the girders along. Baba concretized and gave a little quantity of vibhuti to the engineer, which he piously scattered over the engine of the crane, and he asked the driver to make efforts to set it going. And with a grunt or two, the engine started, the wheels turned, and the crane moved towards the girders. Lifting the girders with its giant arm, it somehow passed over all the culverts, turned round the Locherla corners, lurched over the Vankaperu slush, and puffed up the Karnataka Nagapalli hill. There, the engineer said its strength was well nigh exhausted. It could not possibly draw all that weight through the sands, so Baba himself sat near the driver and handled the wheel, and the crane unloaded the girders near the work spot. The grumbling of the engineers did not stop with this achievement. In fact, it became even exasperating, for they asked, of what use is all this trouble when it is humanly impossible to hoist them on the walls? Humanly, yes, but where there is the will, there is a way. Labourers were brought from the Tungabhadra dam, ropes were fastened, pulleys were rigged up, and in order to make the girders lighter, each girder was pulled up amid shouts of Jai Sai Ram from the throats of hundreds of devotees in the presence of Baba. The girders were set in place and all went well. The central prayer hall, with a platform ensconced on either side, is the main part of the Nilayam. On the western platform is the shrine, where two life-size oil portraits are placed leaning against the wall, one of Shirdi Sai Baba and the other of Sri Satya Sai Baba. There is also a silver figure of Shirdi Sai Baba in the center and a small portrait of Satya Sai Baba under it. These are kept as aids for meditation and japam, for except bhajan twice a day, once in the morning and a second time in the early hours of the night, there is no regular worship as is generally done in places where an idol is installed and consecrated. There is no rule that even the figure of Shirdi Baba should be there. The hall is a prayer hall, no more, no less, with the portraits of all the various manifestations of Godhead and of all the great sadhakas and Mahapurushas like Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Ramanuja, Madhavacharya, Shankaracharya, Buddha and Jesus Christ, Surdas, Meera, Tukaram, etc., placed on the walls. The rooms on the ground floor are mainly used for storing articles or vessels, etc., besides two rooms set apart for private interviews granted by Baba to devotees who come to have his darshan. The rooms on the first floor are the living rooms for Baba. There is a big sized portico to which Baba comes along the first floor, and from where he gives darshan to the devotees thronging below, from where he speaks on occasions like the Patak, Patak, Patakotsavam at the inauguration of the Navaratri festivities or Shivaratri or his own birthday festival. A charming marble image of Sri Krishna playing the flute is placed right in the center of the top floor in the portico, and so everyone has its attention drawn towards its beauty and charm. There is a flight of steps which lead to the top terrace, and at the center of it, facing the approach, is a bust kept on a pedestal in front of the flagpole. Baba gives darshan from near this bust on days on which the flag is hoisted, and he blesses the huge assembly down below with his Abhaya Hasta. The flag carries on it the representation of the symbol which Baba has concretized in the circle right in front of the building on the ground. There, in the very center of a series of concentric circles, is a pillar which represents yoga with a number of rings to indicate the stages of yogic sadhana. This yoga leads the unfolding of the lotus of the heart, whose petals are borne on top of the pillar. The next stage of this consummation of bhakti and the blossoming of the heart is the flame of jnana, the illumination, the jyoti, which is symbolized as the finale of the stamba. The concentric circles and the intervening spaces, the first one bare and sandy, the second one planted with a bushy type of plant that grows in thick clusters that have to be occasionally clipped short, are explained by Baba to represent the qualities of kama and krodha that have to be overcome in order to reach the yogic stage. The first round, the sandy one, is the desert, is the desert, desire, the wasteland, the purposeless striving after evanescent things. The second, the one with the cluster plant, is krodha or anger, which is difficult to destroy, for as soon as it is clipped, it sprouts again. Then there are two steps, red in color, one low and the other a little higher, symbolizing dvesha or hatred, which too a sadhaka has to overcome. One type of hatred is caused when one is thwarted in the effort to achieve the desired object, and another type when pain is caused to one by the actions of another. After these three are overcome, the circular space filled with green grass, cool to the eye, reminiscent of contentment and prosperity, representing prema, is attained. This is the stage when the mind of man is filled with anandam due to the absence of kama, krodha, and dvesha, and the attitude of sarva samana bhava, that is the very basis of prema. Soon the sadhaka moves on to the open space of prashanti, where he can sit at will and enjoy the fruits of the discipline he has gone through. The yoga fructifies and takes him on from one height to another until the lotus of the heart blooms and the effulgence of illumination is vouchsafed at last. Round the circumference of the circle there are 8 painted pots with flower plants, which Baba explains as symbolizing the Ashtasiddhis which guard the yogi and which have to be kept at a safe distance on the outer fringe only. On the occasion of the ceremonial hoisting of the Prashanti Pataka or flag, Baba generally dilates on this inner significance of this lotus circle in front of the Nilayam and explains why he has got it on the flag also. He advises and commands the devotees to hoist the flag in their own minds and keep it flying aloft there, ruminating all the time on the lessons that it is intended to teach. Baba also speaks of the deeper meaning of the three gates to the prayer hall. The first, the outermost one that leads one into the compound, the one with the arch bearing the inscription of the name of the Nilayam, is the Tamoguna gate. A person who crosses it leaves Tamoguna behind. He has nourished the holy thought of coming to the presence, and so tamas, or the spirit of darkness and ignorance, has fallen behind him. Those who are immersed in tamas will not have even the curiosity to enter. Then there is a second gate, just where the garden around the lotus circle begins. There one is attracted by the magnificence of the building, the electric tube lights, the colored candelabras, the hanging flower pots, that is to say, aspects which appeal to Rajasic individuals. Now they come to the very door of the prayer hall, the Sattvic gate, leading to the abode of peace. The garden in front of the Nilayam is itself a tribute to the devotion of the bhaktas, for it is watered by long lines of devotees who pass the pots from one hand to another and thus bring joy to the plants from the well behind the Nilayam or far in front of the building. Baba has made it a genuine botanical garden, for it contains fruit and flower trees of different parts of the country and trees that do not ordinarily thrive in this particular climatic belt, like the eucalyptus, the silver oak, orange, and coffee. The day begins at the Prashanti Nilayam with the ringing of the prayer hall bell at 4:30 a.m., announcing the Brahma Muhurtam when devotees have to get ready for dhyana and japam. At 4:45 a.m., the uttering of the pranava begins in the hall and it continues for about half an hour, followed by silent namasmarana or japam by devotees until 6 in the morning. The syllable Om is extolled in the Upanishads as the best and most effective symbol of Brahman. Om ityanenaivaka sherana param purusham abhidhyayati. Prashnopanishad. It contains three mantras, A, U, M, as well as Amatra and the Ashabda or soundless stage, where the sound of the Om rings without loudness and makes the sadhaka feel communion with the Brahman. As the consummation of the upasana of the pranava is attainment of pure consciousness, the letters must be taken by the upasaka to symbolize the states of consciousness. Jagrat is the waking state in which the soul of the great Vishwa is dominated by tamas and is engaged with the sthula sharira. The letter A indicates these. The swapna or dreaming state in which the soul of the grade Taijasa is dominated by Rajas and is engrossed with the Sukshma Sharira. The letter U represents these. U is also taken to indicate Ubhayatva or intermediateness. Sushupti or the state of deep sleep finds the soul of the grade of Prajna dominated by Sattva, and it becomes the point of mergence. The waking and dreaming states merge in sleep. A or Brahma, U or Vishnu merge in M or Rudra. The Tamoguna and Rajoguna merge into the Sattva. The Turiya or the fourth state of soundless Amatra is the state of the self per se. The Om also represents other triads like masculine, feminine, neuter, the past, present, and future. The significance of Om is often explained in public speeches and private conversations by Baba. It is also repeated before um, and after each bhajan session, since it is the one great all-inclusive representative of Brahman, non-sectarian and universally accepted. Do you want to do it from now? Okay, come here. So I'm just handing it over to Sudhakar.
Okay, Akka. Thank you.
Baba also constantly emphasizes the need for dhyana with japam as an essential discipline for everyone to be taken up as early in life as possible. He gives detailed instructions and guidance to everyone at the Nilayam as well as elsewhere, eager to practice them. So, there are at Prashant Nilayam many devotees who do Namasmarana, Dhyanam or Japam for many hours a day. Baba, while at Prashant Nilayam, is engaged all the time in the task of blessing the devotees by giving them rare chances of darshan, sparshan, and sambhashana. He eats the simple food of the poorest of the land, food cooked and brought with devotion by bhaktas at the Nilayam. He sleeps on a bed spread on the floor. He sits on a chair, generally on a platform in the northwest of the hall during the bhajan, and gives darshan to all in the hall. He allows them to touch his feet whenever he comes down during bhajan. The morning hours resound with the Vedic mantras that are repeated with the prayer hall during Abhishekam and Sahasranama Puja for the Shivalingam that was taken for this purpose in November 1958 out of the sands of the river Chitravati. In the evening, during most of the month of the year, the Bhagavata Ramayana or such great religious text is expounded for about 2 hours by learned pandits. Many of who come to Nilayam have the supreme advantage of earning an interview with Baba in his private room before departure from Puttaparthi. Individually, if they come alone, or as a family, if they have come as members of a family. Perhaps no other avatar poured out grace in such profusion. Then Baba is the divine physician, diagnosing the ills which the supplicant is ailing from and laying bare the innermost blemishes of character or conduct with the utmost kindness and applying the soothing balm of his grace to the prescription of appropriate remedies. The interview room at Puttaparthi has been the scene of countless transformations of character, revolutions of belief, confirmations of faith, curing of disease, calming of temper, discarding of hatred, salvaging of souls, and reunion of hearts. Seldom does a person come out after the interview with a dry eye. Baba gives to everyone hope and courage, contentment and faith, assurance and solace, because he says, "Why fear when I am here? Put all your faith in me and I shall guide you and guard you." The bhajan sessions in the prayer hall are highly elevating experiences, for the atmosphere is one of serene reverence. Baba himself is generally present in the hall, and on some rare occasions, when he feels like, he sits along with the devotees and teaches in his entrancing way a few namavalis and songs. The father might be a PhD, but when he puts his son through the alphabet, he has to take up the slate and write on it the letters A, B, C, and D. But do not infer from that behavior that he is learning the alphabet himself, says Baba. The Namavalis and the songs are not all about Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba or his previous Shariram Shirdi Sai Baba. They cover the widest possible range from Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma to all the avatars of Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesha, Vitthala, Venkatesha, and other forms of Godhead, and they are sung in Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Hindi, and Sanskrit. Emphasis on the meaning and the emotion of surrender, and in all singing together in unison and to the correct marking of time. Baba has often dilated on the value of loud singing of the Lord's name in unison as an act of service to others. He has compared the loud clapping of the hands while at bhajan to the clapping of the hands under a crow-infested tree in order to frighten away the birds, or frighten the birds away. The noisy crows of gunas and desires and hatreds flocking to your minds can be driven out by the loud clapping of hands as an accompaniment to the ecstatic repetition of the Lord's name, says Baba. Baba exhorts everyone to engage himself in the repetition of the name of the Lord, any name that appeals to the individual being in his eye as good and effective as any other. He has himself composed a number of bhajan songs for the edification of the devotees. Many of these summarize in simple Telugu or Kannada or Tamil the spiritual disciplines that every mortal must adopt, so that the purpose of this human episode may be realized. For example, there is one which asks all to plod through the pilgrimage of life with Satya, Dharma, Shanti, and Prema as the inseparable companion and guides. Effort and endeavor is the duty of man. Success or failure depends on the Lord's grace. Engage yourself in your allotted task every day with the conscious, the living presence of the Lord always by your side. Do not yearn for the 8 siddhis. The devotees will be landed by them in mere delusion. In this thick jungle of life, hold fast to his name, that is enough. Cultivate well the heart, which is your farm. The mind is the plough. The gunas are the bullocks. Take up the whip of discrimination and start ploughing of your heart. Courage is the best of all manures. The seeds you sow must be the seeds of prema. Bhakti is the rain. Emotions are the weeds. The harvest is Brahmananda itself. The bhajan at Prashanti Nilayam is a satsang which purifies by instruction and strengthens by inspiration. Formerly, Baba used to take the devotees out almost daily to the sands of Chitravati, and bhajan was being held there under the stars of the hill as the hoary listeners in the river murmuring response. Now too, he does so occasionally. Sitting on the sand, Baba teaches the devotees songs he has composed for their elevation and edification, and he encourages people to ask him any doubts regarding spiritual matters, for which he gives satisfying answers. Perhaps the reader might get a clearer picture of the scene and the importance of the occasion if I describe an evening on the sands that I had the privilege to attend. It was in November 1949. I reached Puttaparthi one morning at about 9:30 a.m., and I found an atmosphere of exaltation pervading the mandir. Prashanti Nilayam was then half through towards completion. Everyone was talking about Baba going to the river that evening. So some friends congratulated me on my good luck, for the visit to the river, or rather the sands, had already become rather rare. About 5:30 p.m., Baba came out of his room and walked briskly ahead of the big throng of bhaktas, scattering joy all around him with many a quip and a joke or a pleasantry or inquiry. Stepping across this tiny trickle to which the river had been reduced, he trudged along the sand, seeking a place clean and dry for the party to sit, and at last, after proceeding for about 100 or 200 yards, he decided on a site, and we all sat around him, and the men on one side, the women on the other, as we do always at Bhajan Mandir. Baba waited graciously until the oldest and the weakest of the bhaktas reached the spot, were comfortably seated. Then, in reply to a question from one devotee whether karma has to be given up to attain moksha, he gave a sweet, simple exposition on the sublimation of all karmas by the attitude of samarpana to the Lord, and how that arpana will take away the craving for the fruits of karma, and how, when that happens, karma will lose its power to tighten the bonds of attachment which produce sorrow and rebirth. Bhakti devoid of karma is like a basement without a wall. Karma without bhakti is like a wall without a basement. I was struck by the universality of his mission and message, for he said during his discourse, I am the servant of everyone. You can call me by my any name. I will respond, for all names are mine. Or rather, I have no particular name at all. Even if I am discarded by you, I shall be behind you. In my view, there are no Nastikas at all. All are existing by and for the Lord. Denying the Son does not make him disappear. In fact, being with him stilled all questioning and illumined all shadows. After this discourse, Baba taught us a few songs, and then another question. Someone turned the proceedings into another discourse, this time about Shirdi and Sai Baba. The previous body, as he said, he described the features of Sai Baba and derided all types of pictures now being circulated as the incorrect caricatures. And even while talking so, he dug his own fingers into the sand, and lo, there was a fine picture in his hand which he showed to everyone present as the authentic portrait representing Sai Baba as he really looked. He gave it to one of the devotees present for the puja. Conversation naturally moved on to Baba being a manifestation of Dattatreya, and again Baba's finger went into his hands, and lo, there came to his hand a charming metal image of Dattatreya, a symbol of the unity of the Trinity in the Hindu mythology. In their excitement, all had now become closer to Baba, and he felt that each of them must receive something from him and return happy instead of only the two gentlemen who got the picture and the image. He therefore took out from the sands a thick, flat block of sugar candy, which he himself broke into bits and distributed to every man, woman, and child. For, he said, if anyone else did the distribution, it would not be enough for giving a piece for each. He then took a handful of sand, and while pouring it on a plate, it became vibhuti. This he gave to all who were present. Baba is so fond of these open-air sessions of bhajans and discourse that he takes devotees to the riverbed or seashore, wherever one is within reach. Baba has held prayer sessions and discussion groups of this nature on the sands of Godavari, the Kaivalya, the Swarnamukhi, the Vaigai, and the other rivers, as well as the banks of the Ganga, the Jhelum, and the Yamuna. He also sat with the devotees on the seashores of Madras, Tranquebar, Masulipatam, Cape Comorin, and Kovalam, and performed miracles of turning sand into pictures, images, vibhuti, or whatever he wanted it to become. Generally, Baba takes the devotees to the sands on festival days, which do not attract mammoth crowds, but for which there is assembled only a manageable throng of devotees. On Gokulashtami day, or perhaps the day previous, he very often visits the sand and sometimes takes from the sand an image of Krishna, which is kept in the hall on the birthday of Lord Sri Krishna. And afterwards, it's given to some of the bhaktas for being worshipped in his domestic shrine. So also on Ram Navami day, or perhaps the day previous, Baba takes from the seashore or riverbed, depending on where he is at that time, images of Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, and Anjaneya, or of Rama only, and gives them to be worshipped. Near Kalahasti, from the Swarnamukhi, he took images of more than usual size, and they are now kept at Venkatagiri, and the worship is offered regularly to them. Again, on Vaikunta Ekadashi day in the evening, he has been for many years regularly taking for distribution among devotees while in the midst of the bhajan or discourse or the riverbed or seashore, divine nectar. On the Vaikunta Ekadashi 1958, for example, which fell on the 21st of December in the midst of Baba's Kerala tour, Baba went to the Kovalam beach 7 miles away from Trivandrum, accompanied by many devotees. At a quiet spot on the seashore, a mile away from the bathing area, Baba sat on with the bhaktas around him. He sang a few songs. Baba sang a few songs, and there were bhajans afterwards. During the bhajan, Baba took from the sand a bewitching sandalwood image of Krishna playing the flute. And after a few minutes, a gold ring with Radha Krishna motif embossed on it. Everyone expected the Baba would distribute Amrita, taken by him from nowhere, as he generally does on Vaikuntha Ekadashi day, and they were not disappointed, for even as the bhajan was going on, the fragrance of the nectar was clearly cognized, and no one knew from where. Baba's palms became sticky, as if saturated with syrup, even as he was marking time for the songs. All knew that the fragrance was emanating from those palms. Then he held them together and pointed them at a silver vessel when lo, thick ambrosial honey flowed into it from his hand. He then distributed it himself to all the present, including some fisher folk which had joined the group. The sweetness and the scent of the nectar were outside the experience of everyone. They were incomparably strange. On the Telugu New Year day, Baba generally distributes the traditional mixture of bitter, sweet margosa sugar. On the Pongal day, the cattle of the Nilayam are decorated and taken in procession. The villagers come up to the mandir for puja when the cane crushing season starts and extractors are to be operated. The bhaktas too delight when they are granted the chance of celebrating Upanayanams, marriage, uh, Shashtiya Dapurti, Shantis, Kanakabhishekams, Namakaranams, and other samskaras in the immediate presence of Baba in the Nilayam itself. The platform at the eastern end of the prayer hall is generally used for religious functions. On Deepavali day, Baba takes delight in illumination, the firing of the crackers, and he distributes strings of crackers and colored matches to the children of the devotees at Prashantinilam, as well as the children of the village. He sends New Year messages, messages of assurance, admonitions on January 1st to the devotees who earned that blessing on his birthday too. He very often sends birthday wishes to the fortunate. Three festivals are celebrated every year at Puttaparthi, and they're attracting increasingly larger and larger throngs from wider and wider area. They are Dashara, Mahashivaratri, and the birthday of Baba, which is celebrated every year on the 23rd of November for the convenience of many of the devotees who will find it difficult to calculate the date according to the Hindu calendar. The Dashara is being celebrated from the very announcement of the manifestation. In the early days, pujas were done every day, and Baba himself was decked in ornaments, rings, necklaces, crown, and all, and taken in procession palanquins decorated in different styles each day, and the climax being featured on the Vijayadashimi day when Shami Puja and Simo, Simo Langhana were also celebrated. But within a few years, Baba emphasized the religious and spiritual significance of the worship of God as mother, and the character of celebrations took on a new phase. The worship of by all women devotees twice a day with the offering of kumkum, the abhishekam of the image of Shirdi Sai Baba with the quantity of kumkum thus offered during the 9 days, music, poetry, drama, etc., all gained a place in the worship of the mother. Some idea of festivities can be gained by through the program printed and sent to the devotees. Let us take the program of 1958 Dashara for example. The celebrations begin with the flag hoisting ceremony on the morning of the first day. The devotees gather in solemn silence around the lotus circle, and to the sound of the bells and the gongs and the strains of the music and prayer, Baba unfurls the flag. On many occasions, he has explained the inner meaning of the symbol of the lotus that is found in front of the nilayam, as well as on the flag. Daily puja, especially the Kunkumarchana by all the women devotees, begin at noon and are performed twice, all the 10 days. The second day is set apart for social work by the devotees, a repair of the approach road, cleaning of the place where the poor are to be fed on a subsequent day, etc., being some of the items of work. In the evening, the devotees hear discourses about the proper attitude for social workers and the need for doing karma, suffused with and nourished by bhakti from Baba and a few experienced social workers. The third day is the Children's Day with sports and fancy dress drama and recitation by the children of the devotees, as well as the schools of the surrounding villages. Baba makes every child happy and at ease, persuading it to proceed when it breaks down and caressing it into confidence. Prizes are given by Baba to every child participant, prizes that become the pride of the family for years. On the fourth day, the poets assembled. On the fourth day, the poets' assembly is held in the immediate presence of Baba, and poets from far and near read and expound their pieces in Telugu, Tamil, Sanskrit, Kannada, or English. They too are the proud recipients of presents, which are highly valued because they are conferred with much kindness and by a person who himself, the Kavi. Baba himself blesses the devotees with his discourse on 2 or 3 days during Dashera, thus giving thousands who come something to live by, some capital to carry home and invest in daily life. 2 evenings, the sixth and the eighth, are devoted to bhajans, one to Meera bhajan and the other to Vrindavan bhajan. On the seventh day, the poor are fed with clothes. On the seventh day, the poor are fed and clothes are distributed to the maimed and the destitute. Someone once asked Baba why this mammoth functions in which about 4 to 5,000 people are fed sumptuously and about 1,000 persons are given clothes or saris did not appear in any newspaper. Baba replied, I wonder why it should. When your relatives come to you and you feed them, do you invite the press and crave publicity? Baba appears happiest that day of all days during Dashera. It can be said to be his busiest. He examines the cooking and the items prepared. He supervises the seating arrangements. He himself serves sweet laddu to almost everyone, stooping before every leaf and putting on the leaf as much as they can eat. Each can eat. He walks along the lane of misery and selects to whom clothes have to be given. A ticket is issued to such, and their names are later called out so that they may walk up to Baba and receive from his hands the coveted present. It is an inspiring sight and a very educative experience to watch Baba give the clothes. He has a very kind word for everyone. He treats the blind, the maimed, the very old, and faltering with special consideration, asking the volunteers to hold them and guide them. He advises them to be careful and cautious in the dark. He makes kind inquiries about them, and he makes a moment a precious memory to each and every one. Some years ago, the present writer remembers how the rains melted away the brightness of the festoons in front of the Nilayam during the first 3 or 4 days of the Dasara. So Baba wanted that they be renewed in time for the day of the feeding of the poor, because he said there are our most distinguished guests, and the mandir should appear bright and cheerful when they come. That is the attitude with which he teaches every one of his devotees to adopt. The rest of the days are given over to music recitals, vocal, instrumental, or orchestral. A large number of musicians compete for dates because Baba himself is the great musician. One sings in a captivating style and they're eager to win his blessings. On Vijayadashimi Day, Abhishekam is done to the image of Shirdi Baba, and Baba generally takes a lingam and places it on the head of the image prior to the Abhishekam. Shiva has an appellation in Tamil, Tayo Manavar, Tayu Manavar, sorry, meaning he who became also the mother, for the story goes. He once attended on a woman during the delivery of her child, since the actual mother who was hastening to attend on her could not reach the place on the account of the floods in the Kaveri river, which she could not cross. Therefore, Shiva assumed the form of the mother and reached the place in time and served her as a midwife. Baba has been Tayu Manavar many times over. He has taken himself the pains in many instances. He has gone out of his body to act as a midwife during delivery in many instances. Women in far-off places have felt his hand, and he has said about it in Puttaparthi and explained that he had set right the posture of the infant before the delivery itself, so that the event might pass off in comfort. The present writer knows of one incident where the lady was in a hospital. The baby had died on the sixth day because, among other reasons, the umbilical cord was cut shabbily and the wound must have become septic beyond repair, and the mother was despaired of because placenta had not been removed and could not be on account of septic conditions, and people were calmly expecting the worst. Baba at Puttaparthi went out of his body one morning. He was away for an hour and 250 miles away. At the hospital, the placenta fell, the temperature decreased, and the mother was placed on the road to recovery, and the joy dawned on the faces around the bed. Baba, when he returned to the body, said that he had been to the hospital and that he had manifested the vision of his hand to the patient. On the third day, a letter came from the party described the vision and the cure. On a certain Varamahalakshmi Vratam day, about 10 years ago, he accepted puja as Varamahalakshmi and received the offerings made by women who had fulfilled the vows of the Vratam. Those who had this unique good fortune say that he actually appeared to them dressed in a sari and a blouse and resplendent with bangles, necklace, nose stud, ear ornaments, etc. No wonder Navaratri, when Devi is worshipped as Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Annapurna, Tripurasundari, Lalita, and other forms, is attracting thousands to Puttaparthi, where Sai Mata is so beneficent and bountiful. Mahashivaratri is also an equally important festival, for the devotees perform all-night vigil with bhajan in the immediate presence of an avatar, which every moment reminds them of Shiva himself. And with the profuseness of vibhuti that emanates from his hands, forehead, toe, and face, and what with the liberality with which he grants his blessings to all types of erring humanity. For the last 10 or 12 years, Shivaratri is being celebrated at Puttaparthi itself. But even in earlier, every year since the declaration of the manifestation, Shivalingams have materialized within his body. Baba said almost every time that he finds it very difficult to postpone or prevent the formation of lingams, which concretize within him. In the evening, Baba gives a discourse very often. He is interrupted halfway by what appears to be a spasmodic struggles in the stomach area, but he continues with the speech until the reach of the struggle changes to the upper part of his chest and the neck, and when he seems to be undergoing some kind of physical tension, and all of a sudden, to the joyous wonder of all, lingams fall from his mouth. They are then generally placed on the image of Shirdi Sai Baba, and after the celebrations are over, they are given by Baba to some bhakta or the other to be worshipped as per instructions. Such lingams have been worshipped now for over 16 years by some devotees. The lingam that emanate on successive Shivratri days differ in size, different number, size, and composition. Sometimes only one lingam is formed, the material being apparently spatika or gold or silver. Oftentimes it is more in number, 3, 5, 7, or 9, each perhaps about an inch and a half in height, and all complete with pitam, the basement, the lingam marked with 3 horizontal lines to symbolize vibhuti. This lingodbhavam is indeed a unique and a mysterious manifestation of the divine will. Of course, when we dilate so enthusiastically about the manifestations of His will, we should not fail to pay due homage to the personification of that will, Baba himself. He is He is the Prashanti Nilayam wherever he is and wherever he is worshipped or remembered or called upon with devotion. When some bhakta called upon the members of an assembly which Baba had just addressed at the Gokhale Hall, Madras, to go to Puttaparthi and join the wonderful bhajan at Prashanti Nilayam, Baba immediately corrected him and said, "No, no, no. You can be where you are. I shall come to you. Do not put yourself to the expense that you may not be able to afford. If you call upon me, I shall be by your side." A medieval Kannada poet has sung that the distance between us and Shiva is just the distance that our call will reach. Believe in him and call on him, and he will answer, "I am here." And you can call on him by any one of his names too. In October 1957, a hospital with 6 beds for female patients and 6 beds for males and the full complement of equipment for surgery and maternity with even an X-ray unit was inaugurated on the hill behind the Nilayam. It commands a magnificent panorama of hoary mountains, which scraps and cliffs sweeping down to the very banks of the Chitravati. Baba chose this site in spite of the murmurings of the engineers because he said that patients will be inspired and by the awe-inspiring handiwork of the Lord opening out before their eyes. He got a bulldozer, cut and leveled 3 terraces where there was once the rocky flank of a hill, and planned the hospital on the topmost terrace. Speaking on the occasion of the foundation laying ceremony, he said there will be no unbelievable or nastikas. There will only some who did not know or had no opportunity to experience the Lord. Everyone, rich or poor, educated or uneducated, pious or not pious, was subject to disease. So an example of Manava Seva, which Madhava himself does in order to make a man do likewise and earn the grace of the Lord. He said he had planned the hospital at Puttavarthi, for there was no good hospital for miles around. He also said that those who came to the hospital for their physical ills will naturally turn to Prashanti Nilayam for the treatment and the cure of their spiritual ills. Yeah? Do we stop here?
Sairam, yes, we can stop here.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kamalaka
Sairam.
and Sairam. Thank you, Kamalaka and Brother Sudhakar Garu for beautiful rendition. We will now end the reading with Sai Gayatri and Samastaloka. Om साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति